pick.
All right, welcome to another episode of On the Clock. On the Clock's presented by our friends at Titan Bat Company. If you're looking for the highest quality handcrafted wood bats in the game, Titan Bats has you covered with premium maple, ash, and birch game bats in 10 different models and colors to fit your swinging style. As you're gearing up for the spring season, Titan Bats is the perfect option for your next wood bat. In addition to game bats ranging from youth baseball to softball to men's baseball, Titan Bats also offers award bats to make the perfect gift to celebrate a teammate, coach, or baseball fan in your life. Check them out at titanbats.com and use the code JB15 for 15% off your order. All right, we are into our next top 25 update. We have the mailbag episode. We got Tyler here ready to answer some draft questions. We got Monty, who I don't know, he just was down at Georgia Tech with the best ACC series of the weekend. So, got plenty coming your way. How are you all guys doing today? Monty, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm repping what I don't know if I'm going to call this the Lodice combo or the James Ramsey combo.
No,
but
I like it.
Either way, it's covered. Florida State, Georgia Tech. I've had a wonderful weekend. I get to see Virginia tomorrow, try and figure out what's going on with them. I get to go to Atlanta this weekend and see Georgia Tech and Tyler, the Gritzburg Panthers. Get to see them as well, so I'm really excited about that. I know.
Hey, they're not inside. Don't sleep.
Yeah. They didn't just lose a series to ETSU, who is surprisingly good mid-major. I don't know about surprisingly. I think they're supposed to be good, but
yeah,
it might have it. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here with you guys. I've missed you guys. Tyler, we haven't hooked up yet this season. I could have gone, and I opted to go to Blacksburg, which I feel like a pretty good decision was made there.
You all were in the same city and didn't go to the same game.
That's I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like
I didn't even offer to like, hey, you want to grab dinner or get a drink or something? I just
literally never even. I was so tired in Richmond that like I was. What was it? That Saturday, I was just like, I want to go to the hotel. I just want to like nap.
Oh yeah, they couldn't find your credential.
Yes, that too. Shout out. I think her name was Rachel or Julia, that's who it was.
Nothing close to Rachel.
I was so off.
Monty was so upset he didn't even show up for our podcast after. That's how it went.
Oh, I should have done this one.
I looked at the notes and I was like, I could provide some stuff, but this is really Tyler's forte. So
we had a Gardner Webb player as player of the week, and you didn't even
that's
show
true.
up.
That's true. And that was a player that Jim had mentioned when I went down there, was like, this guy is so good. And like he was hit when I saw him in the fall, he was hitting like 115 consistently. And he's just a big dude. Yeah.
But speaking of Virginia, we should get into the top 25 update. And if we're looking at one of our biggest fallers, it is the Virginia Cavaliers. Monty, this is your team. So dive into what happened to Virginia. We'll start with the biggest fallers here and cover them first.
Well, a lot of people are asking what's wrong with them. And part of it is that defensively, without Griff O'Farrell, they're a little bit sloppier. Griff really stabilized that. I'm not saying that Becker's making all the mistakes, but there's something I think to be said about what Griff as a leader as well was able to do there. The other thing is the offense is going, but they're not driving in runs and they're not hitting for power. I think I was just mentioning this on another podcast that I talked a lot about the outfield power of Aiden Teal, Henry Ford, and Harrison Didewick, and I think they have a combined 2 home runs on the year. And we were talking about them potentially hitting 60 to 80 as a trio. So they're not quite doing that. They're still hitting. Their averages look okay. They're walking. They're getting on base, but then they're not driving those runs in. They're leaving them stranded. And then they're playing sloppy baseball. I want to say there were 8 or 9 unearned runs this weekend. BC scrappy, took advantage. And Virginia just hasn't looked like the team that we ranked. Some of us ranked number 1. I think we had them number 3, and they just have not looked it. But at the same time, Brian O'Connor is a Hall of Fame coach, and I still believe he's going to be able to figure it out. I mean, they had major pitching issues last year, and they figured it out and got back to Omaha. So it'll just be interesting to see. But yeah, they deserve to fall.
Yeah, and I was going to mention too, like Henry Ford has not even hit a home run this year. So like that offense that we were claiming was the number 1 offensive team in the nation just hasn't been kind of clicking on all cylinders.
Teal has 1, Didewick has 1, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Tyler, for you, kind of that team's loaded with draft guys like Ford, Godbout. Are there things that you're kind of seeing in those like top tier guys that's just not really showing up?
I think the biggest thing when you look at like Henry Ford, for example, I've mentioned this before as like an issue looking at the swing. Like it's very stiff and really relies a lot on timing with that front foot lift that he has. Because that for me, when you move it to pro ball, you see something like that where he's not really adjusting the swing plane or adjusting his body to spin. He did struggle with that last year. And now it's kind of just like his swing's all out of sorts. He's not able to hit for power as a result. He's still hitting fine. Like the contact rate's still good. His chase rate's still pretty high. And that's just a case of like a majority of these Virginia hitters are pretty aggressive. Like I even remember last year, like Griff O'Farrell swung half the time last year. And that's just a case for like Didowick. I think Godbout's like the lone specimen that doesn't really chase all that much.
Yeah.
In terms of the draft guys, I think you're right. It was like a controlled aggression because it's funny because they were very good at grinding out at bats too. It's a very weird kind of team because normally when because I was like, yeah, I guess you're right, Tyler. Right, but I was like, I wouldn't have described him that way. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to put it is like it's very controlled aggression. But I think the thing with like when you look at Ford this year is obviously the swing is just all out of funk. It's really hard to tell what the issue is, but I think the stiffness has kind of caught up to him a little bit. And I'm not too sure if that may be just something from an injury he had in the fall and he's just not 100% or what. But it's a little bit concerning at this point that, you know, you mentioned it. It's now March 10th. We're entering, you know, the beginning of ACC play. They just lost a series to BC, and he's not hit a homer yet. And this is a guy that hit, 17 last year. So there's definitely cause for concern there for me. I just don't think this lineup is producing at a higher clip like we expected them to. And admittedly, the pitching questions have kind of shown up as well. They really do need Evan Blanco back in the fold.
Yeah.
Bradley Hodges and Jack O'Connor, who we weren't even sure were going to pitch this season. One's made their debut. One's making their debut by the time this is out, or is this out tomorrow? Tuesday.
This is out tomorrow, yeah.
They'll be making it out to. He'll be making his debut today. Those guys are going to take a second to get ramped up. But yeah, you know, Bryson Moore looks like he might be. I don't want to speculate, but he left to start early last week. Didn't appear this week. You know, Chris Arroyo was a guy who obviously he's playing and he had a monster day on Saturday, but he was supposed to be a rotation piece and he's not been pitching in a couple of weeks either, which is there something there? What's going on with that? You know, especially when they're struggling to find guys to be consistent, you'd think you would have seen Chris Arroyo out there pitching if he's good to go, but
yeah. And I mean, the struggles seem to be the same in our two biggest followers because the second one is Texas A&M, also having offensive struggles. So my question is, Tyler, is Texas A&M broken?
Slightly, maybe, more than likely. It obviously sucks not having Grahovic in the fold right now. Obviously, not going to be in there the rest of the year because of I think it's a labrum tear actually. But like you look at some of the depth in that lineup, and we talked about before, kind of like testing this stuff early. And it's really kind of just not been the greatest showing thus far. Like Caden Kent's been pretty impressive. Jace Laviolette's still trying to turn that corner. He hit another home run this weekend, I do believe, or it was a really long double. So he's starting to kind of turn it on a little bit. But, you know, they're not producing. This is kind of like an Arkansas feel where they do have the pitching. Like the starting pitching's been phenomenal the past week or so. But the bullpen's kind of been unreliable. They did lose 4-1 to New Mexico State on Sunday. They just really got to try and get everything in wraps and you know, glued together. I remember seeing something this week where they all got buzz cuts or something as like a team mojo thing. Maybe that turns it around. Like, you know, that having the full team on board, something like that could be all they really need. But I think it might just be a confidence thing too in the players and you know, seeing one of your top guys go down, you're seeing all the talk on Twitter, Instagram, all this that, you know, this is the number one team coming into the year and they look pedestrian. So obviously that takes its toll mentally on players, and just looking at what they've been able to do since, like, they ruled Rice in Houston, and
They
I mean
like 19-1 or something like that against New
it was
Mexico State on
ridiculous. Like
Friday.
Caden Kent went yard twice.
Yeah, that team's running on the back of Caden Kent and Wyatt Hensler.
Is he related to like Jeff Kent or something?
Yes, it is. It's a son.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know that.
Oh, did you not know that, Jared? I was being facetious.
Oh, I did not know that.
I know exactly why you were saying that.
They like to show his dad a lot.
Yeah.
Gotcha. ESPN only mentioned it like a million times in the College World Series last year. Which, by the way, did you know Caden Kent is Jeff Kent's son?
Yeah. Now we know. Now I know.
You're welcome.
Well, that kind of turns us to the other Texas team, which was our biggest riser this week, the Texas Longhorns. They have just been on fire. They started off playing really well in the season. Tyler and I caught them at the Shriners Children's College Showdown, where they beat, believe, both Arizona and Mississippi State. Or who was it? Sorry, I can't remember.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Yep. They beat Ole Miss and Arizona, who are both ranked as well during that. And then since then, they've just been going on an absolute run. And so they're just a very, very, very good team overall. Jared Spencer has like shown up as a Friday night ace for them. The lineup from top to bottom with like Jalen Flores, Max Blue, Will Gasparino, like they just look really good and look the part. Monty, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the Longhorns?
Not any nice ones.
Tyler, let's. I'm just kidding.
No, I don't have. I'm good to go with whatever you guys want to talk about with Texas.
Yeah, we'll go with Tyler. Tyler seems positive.
I try to be positive. I can't guarantee that I will be. But you look at what Texas has in the lineup, like they've been pretty impressive coming into the year. And like we were talking about having like the true freshman Adrian Rodriguez in the 2-hole in Shriners, and like honestly, he looks really good.
Yeah.
Like that top of the lineup right now, I think it's Ethan Mendoza, Max Blue, Will Gasparino, Adrian Rodriguez, Jalen Flores. That's a really, really good 1 through 5 of your lineup.
They've been crushing.
And that's not even to include like Kimball Schlusler, Casey Borba, who is Coach Borba's son from Orange Lutheran, if you happen to know the high school ranks in SoCal. And also Easton Winfield is at the very back of that lineup with like Tommy Farmer, Rylan Galvin, Oliver Service. They've got a ton of depth. And for me, it's just really impressive what they do with the offense. And looking at what they have, pitching wise, they want to put Dylan Volantis, who's a true freshman, into that Sunday role moving forward. And you mentioned before, Jared Spencer looking really good. Can't remember the other guy's name that was pitching on the Saturdays. He pitched really, really well at Shriners. Give me un momento to get his name.
Remember the name.
Luke Harrison. Luke Harrison's been doing really good so far. So
not the same Luke Harrison from Virginia, Monty. I know you have that perplexed look.
Luke Harrison.
Hanson. Yeah.
Okay. No, I thought Luke Harrison was a pretty well-known name, so that's why I didn't even. The fact that I know who he is, yeah. So.
Nice.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on Texas. They're
yeah. Are we surprised Texas is good? Because I Schloss.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like shocked. They had a good team, but I think they're kind of not maybe overperforming my expectations, but they're playing a lot better than I thought they would.
I feel like that's probably because of the David Pierce Texas teams.
Yeah.
Like in the past, like you're kind of expecting them to kind of underperform a little bit with the talent they've got, and now they're actually doing what they're supposed to. It's a little bit like, oh, huh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the big updates we have for who's in. We had the Arizona Wildcats. They're now back in, coming in at number 19. Southern Miss Golden Eagles coming in at number 22. And then we have the Troy Trojans coming in at number 25. I don't know if either of you guys want to talk about these teams, but I'll kind of touch on Arizona. I think this is a team that I'm excited to kind of see back in the top 25. When we were at the Shriners Children's College Showdown, they went out there, got swept throughout the entire weekend. It wasn't pretty, but then they go to but since they've gotten swept, they've gone on into a sweep San Diego, They went to beat Texas A&M and then beat a tough Mississippi State team as well. And then they went and hosted Pepperdine in a 4-game set and swept them as well. The biggest concern from them and Shriners was the offense just kind of wasn't hitting on all cylinders. But since then, Adonis Guzman, Aaron Walton, Brendan Summerhill, Mason White, they've really started supplying some of the pop and run scoring for that team. And Summerhill and White were like the two guys you really needed to kind of get going for this team to be successful. So Colin McKinney's been locking it down as the Friday night ace for them. Casey Heinzman's been following him, looking absolutely electric out of the bullpen. And so I'm excited to see this team. They got some bigger tests this week. They'll face Arizona State on a Tuesday, and then they have the Cincinnati Bearcats over the weekend. So have a tough test, tough challenge, but excited to see them back in the top 25. What do you guys got?
So they have a conference. They have a conference game in the middle of the week.
They're not. Are they in the same? Yeah, they're in the same conference, huh?
It could be a previously scheduled non-conference game.
Well, they're both in the pack before that. Arizona State.
Well, then that's
I don't know.
Then.
They just got
maybe that's something they've done, because I know Pac-12 teams have done that before. They actually play like the weekend series, and like Stanford and Cal had like a midweek to have like a 4 or 5 game series or something. I don't know.
It says it's the 2024 Pac-12 championship pennant giveaway, so it's not anything special. It's just the giveaway.
Sounds pretty special. Sounds like a
good
giveaway.
special.
Midweek rivalry game. That's all it says. So I don't know.
I'm in. Let's go.
Red out. They're having.
Who's driving?
We're all going down to Tucson. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts you all have on Southern Miss, Troy, Arizona?
I mean, we talked about it before the show. Georgia Tech dropping out because of the way the algorithm works. I had them, I think, 18th, which by itself was enough to get them into the top 25 last time. I was not able to get my vote in time due to my travel schedule, and so therefore Georgia Tech dropped out, despite winning a road series at Virginia Tech. But it'll be fine if they keep winning. They'll end up back in there, and I believe in them. They're an Omaha team.
Love it. Only other teams that we had out were Blue Devils and Auburn Tigers.
Duke. Unfortunately, they're trying to figure some stuff out. They did bounce back and win that series against Cal, but they did get run ruled Friday night. Auburn is just,
I don't know what to make of them.
I mean, it doesn't sound like they do either.
Yeah, they beat a ranked Oregon State, but then they lose to Old Dominion and like Holy Cross. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they are. I can't really tell. Cam Tilley's great though. Hey, Tyler, you want to talk about Cam Tilley and how good he is?
Yeah, so like Cam Tilley is actually going to be right now I'm slated to be on the top 200 update, which is going to be coming in about a week or so. Hoping to get some more clarity on some guys, but right now making good progress on it. So yay. But Tilley's interesting. Like he's been kind of like a piggyback sort of guy coming out of the bullpen, going a few innings to kind of save some of the bigger arms for later on. But it's pretty wicked stuff, and I think he can start at the next level. Been up to like 95 with his heater, but he's getting a lot of swing and miss with a really, really good slider. Has a ton of sweeping action, really good changeup also in the mid 80s. There's a lot of stuff really to like there, and command can kind of come and go, but the effort and the arm action aren't bad. Like nice. there's definitely traits there to where like you look at the video and look at what his delivery is. Like he might be able to start at the next level, and I feel like he might even start a couple games later on this year too if everything kind of goes according to plan for Butch Thompson and Auburn. So I'm pretty excited to see what Tilley can do. I think he's a really fascinating prospect to kind of dive into, and we'll talk more about him later on when that top 200 does come out.
Love it. That kind of wraps it up for top 25 updates. We have the mailbag questions we got to get to. All of you have been awesome. Sent us a ton of questions. Sorry, Monty, there's not a lot of college baseball ones in here. Mostly MLB draft related. But
see you guys later.
We'll start with the college. What do you got?
I can answer some of these. I can see some of these. I mean, the first question. I mean, you know what? Sorry.
No, we're gonna go right into the college baseball ones to start. by the way, at the bottom.
That's why I was like, let me not jump ahead because I was about to
I got you
jump
excited.
in. Yeah, I saw that first. It's a good one, so that's why I was ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, the college ones. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's hit it. Let's go.
First question comes from Mr. Nate Perez on Instagram. Of the 3 college teams with nightmare starts to the season, Texas A&M, NC State, and Duke, which team is best poised to turn it around, and which team do you think is going to tailspin? Who wants to take the nightmare start? Or sorry, who wants to take the poise to turn it around first?
I think all 3 can turn it around.
Look at you, an optimist.
I mean, I believe in the coaching staffs of 2 of them, and then I believe in the a mass of talent that they've got in College Station. Turn it around. Well, define turn it around. I mean, they can all make the NCAA tournament.
They could.
I don't think that's quite what they're looking for, though, right? Because
Yeah.
these are teams with Omaha aspirations. I'm going to go with Tyler. I'll let you go first.
Put him right on the spot.
Wow. Okay. What a cliffhanger we got here from Mr. Monty Taylor.
I'm going to go with one of the ACC teams because of my knowledge there, but I want you to choose the other one so it makes my choice easier.
What? I don't get to choose one?
No, here's the thing. I take one. Jared, you take the one that me and Monty don't take.
Great. Awesome. We were all prepared.
So, I think you already know which one I'm going for.
Yeah. NC State.
Yep.
Shocker.
Yeah. So, obviously the Jacksonville tournament was really.
No, I'm joking. I was going to take literally whoever you didn't. So.
Okay, cool. That works for me. But yeah, State after that kind of just really abysmal showing in Jacksonville, just did not play well at all. Had trouble with the offense really getting into gear. Granted, yes, like they haven't played a really good competition in the past couple of weeks. I think their best opponent has been UNC Greensboro, going there and run ruling them. I think it was like 10-0. Mm-hmm. But I think they're kind of starting to figure it out a little bit. The offense can still kind of come and go. Like the other day, it was only a 2-0 game against Wright State. But you look at what the pitching has done to kind of turn everything around. Like Jacob Duden was thrown out to a midweek start, went 3 perfect innings, struck out 6, I do believe. And like Dom Fritton's had back-to-back double-digit strikeout games. Keith Andrews has been kind of like a solid piece to have in as a Saturday guy. But Ryan Marone, the sophomore from, I believe, Ohio, he was a Guardians draft pick back in 23 in like the 20th round. He's gone back-to-back complete game shutouts with like
26
strikeouts, I believe.
I think so. It's either 25 or 26, one of the two.
Yeah, compared to like 1 walk in 16 innings.
3 walks all year, I believe.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is kind of a transformation, not only for Marone, like he's always had the talent, but the rest of that team too. I think they're starting to finally gel together, kind of figure out everything. Like Chris McHugh has been looking really good in the lineup. I think he leads the team in RBIs right now. Having Justin DeCurcio at the top of that lineup has been pretty good for them as well. And Ty Head's kind of turned heads too. Like he's made some really good defensive plays in center field. His bat's starting to turn a corner. I really do think that NC State is going to probably be better than Duke in terms of turning around. I think with Duke right now, it's a little bit more interesting. And Monty, I'll let you kind of dive into that a little bit.
Real quick, I will get Duke, but I do love that. When we talked last, I was last on the podcast right after that Jacksonville performance, and Elliott Avent was very adamant this was a mental situation for a lot of these guys, and they have turned it around the way they needed to. Granted, the level of competition, but how about Elliott Avent and the coaching staff to identify that with Jacob Duden in particular and just attack it, move him into a starting role, force him to kind of get in a different little bit of a role, and then immediately turn around in the weekend and throw him out there again. And he looks fantastic again. Like, knowing that it was more of a mental thing than a mechanics issue, and just finding different ways to kind of fix that shows why Elliott Avon's so good at what he does. So I just wanted to shout that out there before I moved on to Duke. Just fantastic effort there. I know that, again, some people will talk about the schedule they've faced since Jacksonville, but they took care of business when they've needed to. But Duke. So the thing with Duke is KJ and AJ have not really gotten their stuff together this year. I mean, AJ Grazia is still walking, but he's not hitting. KJ is hitting, but he's not pitching very great. Like, he's pitching, I think he's pitching decently if he was a Saturday or Sunday guy, but the Friday guy who is supposed to eat the innings for Duke, considering how they like to throw out the kind of the short starts. I don't want to say openers, because Higgins typically goes about 3 innings and Andrew Healy will go 3 to 5 innings. So they're not quite openers, but they're not quite full length starters. But you really need that Friday guy like Santucci did last year. Even when he was throwing 100 plus pitches in 5 innings, he was still going 5 innings. And there were times he would go 7, but he was really able to eat those innings and then be an ace. And KJ is not quite doing that. I'm not sure. I haven't done quite a deep dive into what's wrong with the pitching particularly there, but at the plate he's been looking fantastic. But they need him to step on the mound, because the offense needs to find something, because they cannot depend on Ben Miller to hit 9 home runs in 15 games again. But yeah, Tyler could talk more about with AJ, but I do believe in this Duke team. Chris Pollard is one of the more underrated coaches, I think, in the country. I mean, obviously we don't see him as underrated because we're pretty close to the region. Obviously, Tyler and I go to Duke frequently, and Jared's going to get a lot of spillover from me and Tyler talking about Pollard. But they're a blue collar team, and he stresses that blue collar mentality. So it's a long season. They've got plenty of opportunities to bounce back. They've got to go to the West Coast now and take on Stanford, who we just saw dismantle a very, very strong North Carolina team in Chapel Hill. So they got to figure it out fast. It's a long season. You're going to have ups and downs, but at some point it's got to come together. Otherwise it could spiral. And I still think their floor is the NCAA tournament, but as we've talked about, I think we talked beforehand about Virginia Tech and their late season collapses. You got to find ways to stop the bleeding. Otherwise it gets out of control.
Yeah. Tyler, did you want to build on Gracia a little bit?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something too, and this was something I talked with Aaron Socha, who's the SID at Duke, about on Saturday. He's awesome. I love Aaron. But kind of like build upon that too. Like you mentioned, he's not hitting. Like he's hitting $170, kind of like going into ACC play. But for me, looking at him play, he's not whiffing. He's not looking awful at the plate. Like this is a bunch of bad luck, essentially. Like his BABIP, I think, is something like 160 coming into this past weekend. Let me just double check to be on the safe side.
Yeah, it's inexplicable in a way. Like that's why when somebody's like, "What's wrong with Duke?" and it's like, I mean, Pollard had similar Friday night post-game comments after the Cal run rule loss. He was like, that should not have gone that way. Like all the matchups favored us. All this did that. Like, and it just, he was at a loss to explain, because everything seemed to work perfectly in Duke's favor, and yet Cal decided that this is baseball. We're going to mess with you.
Yeah, and like Gracia's BABIP on the year is 167. So for me, there's just no way that's sustainable over a full season at this point. And I feel like if Gracia being the kind of like a center point of that lineup, you're looking at a guy who, looking at the draft side, like he's one of the top guys in next year's class, but he's also very reliable. And you saw what he did as a freshman. If he starts picking up the pace and we're starting looking at a guy that's kind of turning back into form as we get deeper in ACC play, I feel like that kind of spills over to the rest of the guys, because I know he's not the only one that's having the kind of the bad ball luck so far. Like Gracia still looks, pretty reasonable. It's just he's hitting a lot of hard hit balls right to guys, and that's just the story of baseball right now. Is not everything's going to be in your favor. And right now, like last year, I think his BABIP was like 350. So I think there's definitely more in the tank for not only Gracia, but for this whole Duke lineup. Like they're going to turn the corner at some point, and they're going to look like the team that we thought that they were going to be coming into the season, I think.
That's a good point, yeah, because AJ hasn't necessarily looked lost, and like I said, he was still walking, so I'm glad you expanded on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to protect my boy.
That leaves me, I guess, with Texas A&M. And I'm going to wrap up the question by taking the second half of it and saying that Texas A&M will not turn it around. And
Was that
this
an
is
option?
it. Yes, it was. I kind of said this when I wrote up the top 25 that they need to figure it out fast, but like fast is kind of here already, and the SEC schedule starts next week, and they have to face Alabama. Yep, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas, LSU, and then Missouri and Georgia.
But like, Missouri at the end, that's brutal. They needed to start with Missouri.
Yeah, they needed to start. They needed Missouri at the beginning.
This is the second time in a row I've taken shots at Missouri for no reason. I apologize. I don't hate Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri's going to reach out to us and be like, what, why? What did we do? I think that's a very, very, very tough schedule to find ways to turn things around. You got the midweek, sure, but they've been losing the midweek games to just random teams. So I'm not sold. I'm not bought in. You're missing Graham Grahovic. You got your two, like, basically hits leaders in Hayden Schott and Jace LaViolette striking out more than, like, the entire NCAA right now. So I have a hard time seeing this team turn around. If anything's going to get them to turn around, it's going to be the pitching staff because the rotation's been kind of lights out. I'm curious to see, like, what Miles Patton turns into once conference play starts, but I just feel like the bullpen's been blowing every game that's close. The lineup's not showing up and scoring enough runs to give the bullpen any kind of breathing room. Just feels like a recipe for disaster, and I think it's going to be a long season for the Aggies. Anyways, I'm moving on to a positive note. Let's go on to the next question. What college baseball team should I be paying attention to other than the top 25? From Evan Yates. Monty can probably tell you based on his hat.
Georgia Tech and Louisville. If you're talking about the ACC, I think those are two teams that have Omaha ability. Although Louisville, I'm a little nervous with Parker Detmers possibly out for some time, but yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. But if you're looking for somebody outside the ACC, I'm a big fan of this Penn State team. Mike Gambino is just the man. And if you're looking for a really deep cut mid-major, the Richmond Spiders. They're 14-2. They've beaten NC State and BC, and they didn't just beat those teams. They dominated NC State and Boston College. They were not close, and one of those was on the weekend. So, like, you can take the mid-major thing out and throw it out when they almost run rule Boston College, who goes and beats a top 10 Virginia team on the road.
Yeah. I love it. I'm switching, and mine is going to be
A10.
The Rhode Island Rams. We're throwing them in there. Don't let the 7-8 record fool you. They had a guy go 10 innings against Oregon. They won a game against Oregon. They have gone on a 3-game winning streak, swept Eastern Kentucky.
You're missing an important stat.
Which one?
The X vibes.
Oh, the X vibes. What's the X vibes?
The vibes, the expected vibes, vibes above replacement. Oh man, they are through the roof.
Yeah,
Tyler knows about the intangibles.
This team's hitting .317 with 24 home runs and 141 RBIs. Anthony DePino is hitting .377 with 7 doubles, 8 home runs, 18 RBIs on the squad.
Oh, you're ready.
Rhode Island Rams, A10 champs. Sorry, Richmond. It's gonna happen. Tyler, who you got?
He doesn't know where to go.
Can I build off Penn State? Because I think that's a really good team.
I apologize. I did take 5 teams. Go ahead, Tyler. Take Penn State. I'll give you one of mine.
So, like, I'll bid off your point with that. I think they're probably one of the best lineups on the East Coast. I really do. Like, you look at what they have top to bottom. Paxton Kling is your leadoff guy. Ryan Weingartner, who is admittedly one of the most underrated guys in the entire Big Ten, I do believe. The Jakonski brothers are performing pretty well. Bryce Molinaro has finally decided to show up. Like, did not have a home run through non-conference play. I guess the conference play hits 2 bombs against Indiana. I think the first game of the doubleheader, I'm pretty sure. and then you throw in like Ryan DeSantis, who could be one of the weirdest yet pretty challenging arms to face in the Big Ten. I think all in all, like Penn State's got the recipes to probably win the Big Ten or at least contend for the title this year, assuming that like Oregon doesn't steamroll everybody that we've kind of seen so far,
Except
apart from Rhode Island.
By the way, you know who Penn State has, who they have rolled through? University of Richmond, who was 14-2.
Wait,
Richmond,
Penn State rolled through Rhode Island when?
No, I said Richmond.
It was Richmond.
Tyler was being funny. Yeah, they the one of Richmond's 2 losses was a 17-4 loss, I think.
That's not good.
17-6,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
It
no,
wasn't
Penn
that bad
State's
until
good.
the very last inning. But,
Rhode Island's got that 36-22 victory over William and Mary. All right, so
hey, Virginia and BC scored more runs in their baseball game than they did in their football game.
We were talking about that the other day in the press box, and I'm pretty sure that was the case. So thank you for clarifying.
It was. Yep. I think they may have matched it. It may have been matched or better. It was one of the two. It may have been matched, but it was not less than. But yeah, what's our next question?
I'm going to mention this right before we get to the next question that the Rhode Island Rams are 7-8 with a 9.66 team ERA. It's just going to throw that out there. They're scoring a lot of runs, but they're giving up a lot of runs.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine.
So we now have a question from Roy and Mortisugo. How about the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors? Best clutch team in all of D1? Who wants this one? Nobody? Anybody?
I know they're doing well. I know Hawaii's doing well. I have not been able to see them. I know they're doing really well. I know they're playing really well. But I unfortunately am not qualified to answer that question because their time zone is 8 time zones away or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am also in that boat as well. I have not watched enough of Hawaii baseball, and when I do get to watch them, it's Jack the Lawn Champs and those guys at 11.7 putting them on my feed. So
yeah,
you know what? Let's say yes and give them a regional. F it.
Yeah, throw it in there. See what happens.
Yeah, I like it. Let's go Rainbow Warriors.
They do get a tough test with UCSB in town this week.
Yeah. Jared's under the radar Omaha team.
Yep, here for it. Now we're gonna go into some draft questions, and Monty was excited for this first one. Where does Justin LeBron land on your way to early 2026 mock? And then we'll add this question there because it's related. Drew Burress or Justin LeBron? If you had to draft one to build your team around, who would it be and why? Tyler has a finger up. Go.
Oh, I'm just telling you the place where LeBron would be.
Oh, Monty, response?
I don't think you can go wrong, but knowing Drew Burress as a human being changes my opinion a little bit.
But what if you knew Justin as a human being?
It may change it. I'm not saying I have some inside information, not inside information. It's people know this stuff if they want to dig deep on Drew Burress, but just the type of drive he has and the way he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I'm actually working on an article right now about the top 3 players in that Georgia Tech lineup with Kent Schmidt and Kyle Lodis. Those guys are very good at what they do, but their personalities are big. They're fun. Drew Burress is all business. Like I don't talk to him until after the game because he's locked in and baseball is his life. It's in his family's. I mean, his family does baseball, but at the same time, he's committed to graduating in 3 years. Mm. He is on pace to do that. He sets goals and he achieves those goals. And, I know that, AJ Grazia, Justin LeBron, they're going to have a little bit more, what is it, the term projectability in their body types and everything. But Drew Burress, I think, is a special type of person in that he can overcome some of maybe what other people see. I mean, he is physically very good. I mean, I forget that he's 5'8", 5'9" until I'm down next to him because he doesn't swing like a Dustin Pedroia. He doesn't swing necessarily like even like a Jose Altuve. He swings like he's 6 foot. And I think I would go number 1 with Burris just based on some of the intangibles. I joked about the X vibes, not necessarily the vibes, but the intangibles and what he does as a human being kind of sets him apart. But you cannot go wrong with Justin LeBron. I enjoyed watching him thoroughly in Jacksonville. He's an absolute stud. I also don't think you can go wrong with an AJ Grazia. If we're talking about the 2026 draft, I'm looking more at position players this far early because so much can go wrong with pitchers that I think it's easier to project the position players. So right now, those are the 3 guys I'm looking at the top of the draft.
Love it, Tyler. What do you got?
I like it. So I think the thing for me when looking at what LeBron has changed from like last year to this year, the biggest thing kind of coming in was the power. Like I think his max exit velocity last year was like 105, 106. So he wasn't hitting the ball very hard. Fast forward to this year, he's going backside 107. I think his max EV is like 110 right now. 110. So there's a lot of stuff ongoing there. And the background data is not bad on him either. Like he does have troubles with changeups. But sliders he handles well. Fastballs, he can't sneak one by him. He's hitting for power, more pull side power now too. So for me, when you're looking at scouting positions and trying to figure out like which positions matter most, shortstop and center field are the 2 most valuable positions on the field, in my opinion. So when you're looking at what we have kind of lining up here, like Drew Burris has been playing center field for God knows how long. This kid's been playing out there since at least early high school years over at Houston County. And Monty nailed it pretty well. Like he doesn't swing like he's 5'8", 5'9". He is pretty powerful for a guy that's as compact as he is, physically. And for me, like that's pretty valuable. Like the Burris's plate approach and his plate discipline are still really impressive as well. And the EVs he's producing as a guy his size are really impressive. And he's playing valuable center field defense. And when you look at LeBron, he's kind of doing the same thing just at shortstop now. So for me, looking at what those guys are doing, they're very, very, very close. But I think the edge does go to LeBron here because he's really shown us the 5-tool potential that he does have. And being able to man shortstop, it can go either which way, depending on who you talk to. For me, I think shortstop is definitely the more valuable position than center field, but it is very, very close. So,
I would have thought shortstop by a landslide, to be honest.
Center field is very valuable.
Yeah, up the
middle.
middle.
I've also seen center fielders be like who being moved to shortstops being moved to center field. So that's why. Interesting.
Hashtag Michael Garcia going to be the Royals' future center fielder.
Which team?
The Royals. Sticking with 26, Jackson Flora. How high could he go in the 26 draft? Tyler, I'll give you this one here. Potentially the best arm at UCSB right now.
Oh, that's a bit bold, but also not a statement I disagree with right now.
Yeah.
Potentially. I think the biggest thing with Flora right now, he's kind of just a 2-pitch guy. So it's fastball that averages 97 with a low 80 slider, and they both miss bats. Like he's throwing them both for strikes, believe it or not. But there's not much behind that. Like I think he's 50% fastball, 42% slider so far. So he's kind of limited on that front right now, where there's not a ton of arsenal depth, and there's just not a ton of 2-pitch guys that can start at the next level. Like you kind of look at the list. Tyler Glasnow has proven to do that, and he's only pitched like on average 120 innings per year the past few years. Ben Brown's another one for the Cubs. Those are really the only 2 guys I can think of. So for me, I want to see Flora kind of expand that arsenal a little bit, work on the changeup, maybe work on a curveball to kind of like hone in everything. But right now, you're looking at a really, really valuable fastball. Like I think he's already touched 100. He has touched 100.
Crazy.
And like we talked about UCSB all the time. Like obviously Brunner's there right now, but like every single year there's some sort of sophomore arm that just decides to come out and be like, "Hey guys, I'm really good." That's what Flora is this year, And I really do think there's going to be a lot of heat on this kid moving forward if he's still this kind of player this time next year. But right now, I put him as a very high follow. Like I don't think I could put like a grade on him right now when we A, don't know the draft order, and B, we're just so far out that stuff changes.
Yeah.
So for me right now, he's a high follow, which is probably the best thing that he can get from me at this moment, to be completely honest. It's definitely higher end draft talent with Flora is probably the answer to go with on that one.
I love it.
Thanks for the short answer last.
You gotta summarize it. It's like a 5-paragraph essay in high school where like you just conclusion is wrapping up everything. Short answer, conclusion.
I love it. Moving on to the next question. So I'm going to jump around here on our sheet. This is from Sedaine Rafaela Enjoyer. What are the chances Gavin Kilen ends up a top 3 pick in the draft?
100%.
I like how we get Sedaine Rafaela Enjoyer for, especially when you talked about Kilen in 24, where he had like 5 walks on the whole year. And Rafaela has like 19 in his career. So like, there's a path here. There's definitely a path here. But I was talking about this earlier today with you guys in our chat, and what Tennessee has been able to do with Kilen on an approach standpoint has been insane, because this is a guy that swung over 50% of the time last year at Louisville. And the bat the ball skills were definitely worth it, but he was in no rush to take a walk whatsoever. Fast forward to this year.
There was no reason for him to necessarily like make a change, because he was doing really well. So props to that.
Yeah, and like guys they'll stick to the same thing until it doesn't work. That's really just how it is. But you go into this year now. Let's look at what Gavin Kilen's doing. He's swinging under 40% now, so we're looking at a massive decrease in the swing rate. His chase rate has gone from 32% to now it's like 18 or 17%, which is really, really valuable, because that was kind of the main knack on him coming into the year was he swings too much. He chases a lot of pitches. And for me, like looking at chase rate at the next level, you're chasing everything. You don't have the bat the ball skills. It just doesn't work out for you. And that's not to say Kilen would have been one of those guys, but like hypothetically, it's not a great look. But now he looks more complete. There's more power in there too. Like he's hit 110 on the exit velocities in a big league park too, mind you. All those people that say Tennessee cannot hit in a big ballpark. Looking at you guys. But what he's been able to do and change that approach and just look so much better. He's hitting 460 so far this year with like a 16-3 walk decay ratio. That is really impressive in its own right from what he was last year.
Yeah. So
for me, looking at that, pushing him into the top 10, I can totally see it. Top 5, not the question. Top 3, if he continues his pace, I see it.
Yeah, you do that in the SEC?
really, really do.
Yeah. You're top 3. It's going to happen. Monty, any thoughts on Kilen since he was a Louisville guy?
I thought it was interesting when he went to Tennessee, because obviously it was a great choice, obviously, from an offensive perspective. I felt like he could potentially be a shortstop prospect with the arm strength and that, but obviously, he's obviously going to be more of a second baseman now that that's where he's at. You're not going to suddenly move him after, you make that switch in college. I feel like it's pretty permanent typically. But it's interesting. I think it's working out very well offensively, and that plays a factor, right? We just talked about LeBron and the shortstop value. And now you're looking at a guy at second base. Bazana is kind of an outlier, right? With that second base, number 1 overall pick. You don't typically see that, right? So it's probably not top 3, but the way he's hitting, it's going to play. And he can rise as much as, if he keeps hitting. Christian Moore wasn't on like that high, like in the first round until he just kept producing. and producing, and eventually you'll have the last say. You'll play yourself in, and so it'll be up to Gavin Kilen whether he goes top 3, right? Because if he keeps playing and he keeps answering the bell, maybe.
No pressure, Gavin. Have a good time.
To build on the Christian Moore thing too. To build on that too for Simo, he wasn't even in the first round at the start of last year.
Exactly. Yep.
We had him as a second rounder, so just seeing what happens, and he was a full-time second baseman too. I think he started at shortstop and then made the switch over when Dane Curley kind of took over that role. So it's really just showing your tools in SEC play will pay dividends. Like you look at Simo, he was like 60th on our board to, hey, I'm now the Angels' first round pick. Crazy stuff happens.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of go into this question from Jacob York. It kind of stays in the same because Gavin Kilen falls into this category, and I think we all should pick one guy here. But what are some of the outlooks on the top college prospects and how they've performed to this point? Also, some that are rising before conference play. Like Gavin Kilen, obviously a guy rising before conference play. But Tyler, is there another guy on your list that's popping up for you?
Corbin Dickerson. You're looking at a guy that doesn't get on the field at Louisville all that much. He didn't play his freshman year. Limited time last year. He goes to Indiana. They overhauled his swing, basically, is the way to put it with him, because there was a lot of moving parts going into that swing last year at Louisville. Come to this year, the hands are still a bit noisy, but it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot smoother. The swing plane's really, really impressive. And he's really showing off the tools. Like we've talked before on our spotlight of him that this is a really toolsy outfielder, and he's now made it to where he went from kind of like an unknown to the beginning of the year to like he might be an outside chance for a first round pick if he continues this play up right now. So he's one of the guys that really has just opened eyes this year, and just a non-conference play. Like the tools are really, really loud. And to kind of build off of that too, like you look at another guy, not Liam Doyle, but Riley Quick at Alabama. Riley Quick.
I saw him pitch. He looked good.
Yeah, like Riley Quick had an elbow surgery last year, I'm pretty sure. He only pitched 3 innings. Comes out this year, and granted, he's not pitched deep into ball games yet. Like they're still trying to ease him back in because he's still less than it's roughly a year since the injury. But he's been up to 99, has 2 different fastballs that look really good. He misses bats, commands his zone pretty well, has a good slider, has a good changeup. He attacks horizontally really, really well at the strike zone. So those are 2 guys that have really risen up boards for me, and they'll be well represented in our top 200 when we get to that point in time. But to build off the other part of this question of the outlooks for the other guys, like obviously Jamie Arnold didn't pitch this past week. He was sick. And the rumor was he was sick even the week before that. So hopefully he'll be better for ACC play this week. Ava Arquette's gotten up into the top 5 now for me. Jace Laviolette's kind of fallen out of that as well, which, we touched on it earlier. The stiffness of the swing is really kind of worrying me a little bit, because this is a guy that, 6'6", 230. He's already a big kid as it is. And his swing is already so fine-tuned to his body. Like the way he moves to make his swing work, it's all body flow, and it's just not working right now. And I think when you look at results from the past few years, like you do not take a guy who has a 27% strikeout rate at 1-1. And that was the big question mark, is how well can he hit? I think the tools around the board are pretty good. But he's just not shown that hit tool yet this year. And it's just it's something I really want to see.
Hey, the Nats will take you with a 45% high school K rate if you're like in the number 5 pick.
Elijah Green was also way more tools out than
Does Elijah Green need to catch strays right now?
Yes, he is.
I just as a Nationals fan, you guys know my agenda has been Jamie Arnold or bust. I know Liam Doyle's been getting on people's minds, and I'm like, let's see how SEC play goes. But Patrick Forbes maybe rising up some boards.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Let's stick with the Louisville connection here. Like you guys wanted to call out.
Monty
some
only
transfers.
watches Louisville. That's the
No. I think that Griffin Hughes I thought might be lifting up someone. I'm kind of going with probably some deeper cuts here, but yeah, I'm really excited to see who continues to rise because again, like I just said with Gavin Kilen, guys, if they're going to produce, they can keep rising up. I mean, to an extent, obviously you've got to have certain qualifications and tools that they want to see, but if you're producing, it's going to see you shoot up there. And Patrick Forbes is a guy. Logan Lunsford is another guy.
I like that.
I know that's a guy I brought up before that Tyler's kind of mentioned. He kind of is who he is, but I mean,
insane strikeout rate. Yeah.
So
no, I like those. I like those two picks.
Yeah. So can I build off of Hughes and Lunsford real quick before we kind of move on to the next thing?
Go for it.
I'm sorry to stick to the same question.
I didn't even get to go to my player yet. Just kidding.
Well, it's not two players that you're talking about, but the thing with Hughes is like he's been performing really well on that Saturday roll. Comes from Cincinnati, and the fastball is kind of intriguing. It really is. He's been into the mid 90s, has a really good slider cutter thing in the upper 80s that has kind of been keeping hitters honest. And he looks pretty good for what he is. So he's kind of a deeper cut, like you mentioned, Monty. I think he's kind of like a little bit farther down, closer to that 150, 200 range. But he's positioned himself pretty well. And I think like that Miami rotation has looked really good to kind of start the year. I know they had a rough patch against Florida, and I think even against UConn.
I think they looked a lot better against Florida than they did against UConn, to be honest.
Yeah, UConn was not great.
Yeah.
But then also, like, you look at Logan Lunsford, and I was talking to a guy the other day where I was trying to figure out, okay, nothing's really changed data-wise from what he was at Missouri. Why is this fastball missing bats now?
Mascara.
Well, yes, that is definitely one of the guys. And shout out Coach Moose for being an awesome person. But Lunsford's fastball shape has not really changed all that much. However, there's more cutting action. It's still similar IVB, so we're looking at 20 inches plus. I think he averages like 22 right now, and he's commanding top of the zone. That is a recipe for missing bats, and that's why Logan Lunsford is pushing his way up boards right now.
By the way, all three of those guys I mentioned, I know they're ACC guys, but they were also guys I highlighted in my Cape Cod article back in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
I'm very familiar with what they did at the Cape, and then paid attention after. Go ahead, Jared. You go ahead and give us yours.
Yeah, well, the one guy I was going to mention is Arkansas's Wahiwa Aloy. Just because of the performance that he's off to this year. It's a guy who is very aggressive at the plate, or at least last year was very aggressive at the plate, and he expanded the zone because of that. And one thing that I've noticed this year is that he has walked as much as he struck out. Again, early on, haven't joined into to conference play, so I want to see if this gets sustained in the SEC. But he's slashing 433, 534, then 850 slug, 6 home runs, 18 RBIs, 7 doubles. So the power has always been there for Aloy, but if the hit tool has made the improvements that he's showcased thus far, this is a guy I definitely want to watch. So that's where I'm wrapping it up.
Okay. we could go on for hours if we really wanted to, but
we're going to limit everybody to 2 minutes per response. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour here. We got a lot of questions left. So let's get to the next one. We're going to go with, so since we touched on Jason, the last question, it was a concern with Jack Caggs last year, but how concerned should we be with Laviolette's chase rate? Do we think Arnold or Holiday can chase him down at 1? Tyler, you kind of already answered this by saying
I also answered this months ago.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing kind of building off Laviolette's chase rate, I don't think the chase rate's the big issue here. I kind of looking at it, he's never been a big chase rate guy anyways. Like he's always hovered around 15 to 20%. I think this year's the same way. Last I checked, it was like 18%. So, the chase rate's not the issue for me with Laviolette. It's a pure hit tool. And the issue right now is he's handled fastballs. Changeups can be a little bit of an issue, but it's not terrible. The sliders have been the biggest issue. It's something like a 40% whiff rate so far. And, we mentioned earlier, the stiffness in the swing. It's really just it's not been a pretty look so far. And, this is a guy that hit 3 home runs the first weekend and really hasn't done much since. So, again, looking at a guy that strikes out as much as he does, not a 1-1 guy. But I think the chase rate's fine moving forward. But definitely just worried about the pure hit tool and how it plays at the next level.
By the way, I was going to say it's not limited to just Arnold and Holiday chasing him, right? Obviously, Arquette, we mentioned Doyle.
Yeah.
It's anybody's game. We'll see where we're at in July.
Yeah. This draft's
Still
so
one
wide
season.
open. It really is. Like, with the weak nature of this class, like, there's not a ton of room for error for any of these guys at the top. And like, it will show it when Laviolette kind of drops a little bit on our rankings update. So kind of wish that this is the year where we had a surefire 1-1 like we've had the past few years, but we just don't have that this year. That's just the nature of this draft class.
Yeah, I love it. Stick with the college theme here. Sedan Rafael Enjoyer had another question. Is there a massive tier difference fall off between the top 3 catchers, Irish, Stevenson, and Bodine?
I'll do a short answer, yes.
To
Stevenson, and then the rest.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Tyler saw Stevenson firsthand, especially that Saturday. Was it the Saturday performance?
Yeah, it was a Saturday.
That was fun,
dude. That
was
growing up
before our eyes.
He really is. But to answer that question, Monty really did answer it. There is kind of a bit of a drop off. Once you get past Bodine, that's how they. The USA guy said Bodine this past year, and it's stuck in my head. Brooks Bryan from Troy is the guy that I really think can kind of turn some heads this year. It's a really big power bat from the left side, has feel to hit, and has tools behind the plate to kind of stick there. Moving on behind that. Pardon?
I thought Jackson West would do more, but he's had a tough start offensively, and he's been DHing almost exclusively.
Ooh, that's not good. Hunter Carnes behind home plate, I assume.
Hunter Carnes and the Dartmouth transfer who's doing really well. I don't want to try and butcher his name, but it's Cmeyla. Nathan Smelia, something like that.
Oh, okay. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, But yeah, that was somebody remember I talked to you ahead of time. I was like, he put on like 30 pounds of weight. He's going to hit for power, which he was missing last year. He's going to be the full-time catcher. I mean, I knew they'd get Carnes in there somehow, but I expected a lot more. And that was somebody I would have thought would be fighting into that next tier with, Brian. Is it the Dallas Baptist?
Grant J.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Grant J. Matt Clean from Louisville. Another Louisville connection here.
Matt Clean got a good hit tool.
Yeah. Good hit tool. It's got power too. But like after Brooks Bryan, there kind of is that steep drop off. Like Brooks is probably the next best guy to have after those top 3. But then you started kind of looking at all the high school guys, and I think they kind of fit better than some of the guys like Easton Carmichael, Oklahoma, probably the 5th guy catching on our board from the college side. And then after that, just cannot tell you who's behind him because
it's interesting because
kind of does really drop off.
It's interesting because you get into the difference between like a good college catcher and then a good college catching prospect. Because I think the ACC is loaded with good catchers. Some of them are obviously underclassmen, but you've also got some just experienced guys that aren't necessarily big draft prospects.
Yeah.
Jacob Ferentz.
Yeah. Jacob Ferentz might be one of the best catchers in the country, and yet he's not really a draft prospect at 24.
He's like a super senior, isn't he? Or is he
because the extra eligibility at D3. Yep.
Yeah. Tyler, in your fastest response possible, because this is going to be a fun one. The top 5, Julian Kielb? I don't know how to say his last name. Top 5 draft prospects and top 2 to 3 underrated draft prospects for the MLB draft.
Let Tyler handle this one. I don't have time to think of that.
No, whenever you said fastest response, do you want me to start doing Green Mile Eminem or like, I'm not capable of doing that, but I can try my damn best.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fully loaded question.
Okay. So I'll kind of start off with the top 5. Like right now, kind of looking at what we have top 5 wise. I have it slated Jamie Arnold, Ava Arquette, Billy Carlson. Gavin Fiend is probably going to be in there at some point. I'm still kind of working out 4 and 5. Then you can throw in a guy like kind of throwing a dartboard here, but like Seth Hernandez at 5 probably makes some sense right now. And outside of that, Gavin Keelan's in the mix for it. Brendan Summerhill, I think, is probably in the mix for it. Jace Laviolette, not really anymore, like we had mentioned. It's just there's not a ton of guys that have been able to push their way up into that ranking right now. But right now, Arnold, Arquette, Carlson, Summerhill, Fiend, Hernandez, Keelan are kind of like the short list of guys that can go in the top 5. In terms of underrated guys, I'm going to go with 3 anyways because you've piqued my interest and I've got to get all 3 in. So going to do that. So Steele Hall from Hewitt-Trussville High School in Alabama. This is a guy that reclassed from 2026. And for me, seeing him this past summer, he didn't really perform well at 18U at the USA trials, but he is very good defensively. I think he's a shortstop at the next level. But he's also added 20 pounds of weight to his body. And the reviews so far are really, really good. Like he's turned the power up. The swing looks a lot better. He's more mature physically. This is a guy that's going to have a lot of helium to him in the coming months. And for me, I'm not too sure if they've already started playing. They probably have because it's a Southern state. But Hall himself has really set himself up well to be paid heavily and to kind of be pulled away from that Tennessee commitment he has. So he's number 1 on my list. Number 2, if we're looking for another guy that's kind of like crept his way up there. Trying to think of like a deeper cut.
Monty Taylor,
Jared Perkins, like those are the 2 big guys that really like they're pushing their way up there. Moving past that, Brent Iredale at Arkansas, and to kind of build off that too, Charles Davalon at Arkansas as well. Those 2 guys have looked really impressive to kind of start the year. Iredale, big Aussie, super powerful, comes from JUCO. And I kind of want to focus on him primarily because he might just be the best power hitter in the country that nobody's talking about.
Interesting.
Like, it's a lot of pull side power. He's hit a ball at like 115 already this year, and he plays a premium third base. He's going to be well represented going into this next update, and I think he's done himself very, very good so far to start the year. Want to see how he plays in SEC play. Like, it's a gauntlet. Everybody knows that, but doesn't chase a ton, takes his walks. Pretty good hit tool right now, too. So, like, really am digging the Brent Iredale so far. And to kind of go after one last guy to build off of. I'm torn between 2. So
you just lied.
I'm not going to talk about both of them.
You're going to mention both, though, aren't you?
Maybe. I have no idea. Eric Snow, Auburn.
Okay.
Eric Snow at Auburn. He didn't have the greatest year at South Florida last year. He was hitting like 250 with a pretty small OPS. Goes to Auburn. He's now tearing the cover off the baseball. He's another guy that's 5'8", 188. Really small, but does not swing the bat like he's a small kid whatsoever. And has hit 110 on the exit velocities. Really is not whiffing at anything. And he's kind of showing himself to be a viable defender in the field. I think he's a second baseman next level. But the bat has really turned a corner, and I'm pretty impressed from what I've seen so far from Eric Snow.
Well, that good list of guys there.
He was asked to list 7. He did 13. I was looking for that 14th one.
All right, hang on. Let me look at the rest of the board here.
We're going to try to do 8 more questions in the next like 25 minutes. So this is going to be fun.
You know what we could do is leave some of these for the end of another episode. But.
You want to? I don't know.
We could.
Can.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
it's a mailbag. We can get it done. Let's stop lollygagging. Let's go.
All right, we're gonna be real fast. So the Verge Pod asked, also the Verge Pod, great Baltimore Royals podcast. If you have not listened, enjoyed watching Minnesota Arizona State last weekend, and Drew Berkland stole the show. Thoughts on him as a draft prospect, along with Isaiah Jackson?
Berkland's interesting. haven't really studied a whole bunch on him to this point, but I know it doesn't miss fastballs. It's pretty good pull side power. But there's a lot of swing and miss with secondaries, so there's a lot to watch there. But I do have other guys on the board that I'm going to promote that kind of fall under that same thing where they mash heaters but can't really swing at anything that spins. So he's an interesting one. Again, got to dive into more on his profile. But to move forward with Isaiah Jackson, I know they overhauled his swing over the fall into the winter, and I mean, he's hitting more. I think he's done a good job of fending off the strikeouts, but he's not walking. It's really aggressive. The raw power is still there. I think he can play a premium center field, but I would really like to see the walks kind of tick up. And to kind of add on that, I want to see the aggression tone down, because right now it's really, really tough to put a positive swing on that right now. Because I mentioned before, chase rates are not a bad chase rate is not good for me in my evaluations. I do kind of grade heavily on that. So would like to see that come down, but those are two guys that have some intriguing factors to them. Even if they are kind of farther down the board for me than some of the other guys that I've fallen under the same archetype, but also have kind of proven more to me at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, love it. Now we're going to do, we got only one team related question, so we're going to do that one really quick. What's a good draft fit for the Detroit Tigers?
Where are they picking at this year?
I don't even know. Probably should look that one up.
I know they're not at the top of the draft anymore because they made the playoffs last year, which, shout out to Tigers. That was a really good story. So 24. Ooh. It's just interesting. Because obviously they go after a big hit power threat in Bryce Rayner last year, who's kind of like a Corey Seager build. Maybe not the same kind of tools, but it still falls under the same thing. I don't think they go down that route again this year. I don't think. And I think the back end of the first round is going to have a lot of like college outfielders that kind of like have some question marks, but they're obviously first rounders for a reason. There's tools to kind of build upon. So kind of list a couple off: Ethan Conrad, Wake Forest; Nicholas Dumasnil from Cal Baptist, which I probably just butchered his name. I really do apologize. Maybe you throw even like Caden Bodine in there potentially to kind of like give you somebody that's like a finished product, but knows that he can hit and hit well. So those are guys that kind of stick out to me. And then also to kind of throw in another guy like Andrew Fisher at Tennessee, who to me has one of the best approaches in the entire draft with the pull side power and the feel to hit. That's really going to carry the profile there. So those are four guys that kind of like, to me, kind of fit that MO for the Tigers at this point in time. I think really at the end of the day, it's going to be a college back end heavy first round, I think.
Mm-hmm. Monty, you seem to have some thoughts on Detroit Tigers.
I was gonna say Andrew Fisher. I was waiting for my opportunity, and he just kept going. So we're good. We
Tyler's like, this is the Tyler show. So welcome.
No worries. We're good to go. I was going to go Andrew Fisher. I mean, somebody could drop. I don't think Merrick Houston's going to drop, but that's a possibility. I think that was more of a possibility before he decided to light up the Winston-Salem skies over the first couple of weeks here. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised also if a college guy drops. We talked about Jace Laviolette. Maybe that's somebody who could drop into the 24 range. Because remember, Vance Honeycutt was a guy that people talked about being 1-1, and he dropped to 22. So
around there. Yeah.
Cam Canarella maybe drops. Who knows? I mean, he just hit his first home run of the year, but he's been kind of not what we've expected this season. So who knows?
Yeah. Long season. Let's go with up next MILB questions. So this is kind of a college and draft related question. How big of an impact do you see AJ Russell playing for the Vols?
Big one.
So the big thing right now is Russell has not thrown since he started that midweek at the end of February. So I don't know what's going on right now or what the plan is at the moment. So TBD on that one. To be quite honest, like,
oh, I love that. That's my favorite pitcher.
Yeah, like
TBA.
really really holds down that Sunday spot, man. Let me tell you.
Oh man,
Really,
Sundays.
really good.
He's one of the best Sunday starters in the league. TBA, TBD.
Someone needs to
Exactly.
pull the TBD numbers.
Yeah. But to answer that question, really not sure what the game plan is with Russell at the moment. Obviously came back but hasn't pitched since, so we'll see. I think he can play a pretty big role.
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong, right? Like he should be. I mean, he should be able to be pretty effective as probably a reliever, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have time to stretch him out, but I think he can make a big impact and just provide midseason depth for a team that's the number one team in the country.
Yeah,
and to kind of think about it too, if you do get him back in the starting rotation, their Sunday spots kind of been around round robin a little bit. Like you get Doyle
TBA.
on Fridays and Marcus Phillips on Saturdays, but you don't have that solidified Sunday spot yet.
no,
Maybe that's
Yeah, a
where he
lot of
fits in.
TBA. A lot of TBA, and then all of a sudden,
you get 97. You get 97 with just heat-seeking missiles that you are not hitting.
There you go.
I want to know the stats between TBD versus TBA. Like who's got the
That's a
better
good point,
stats?
Yeah, who's got the better stats? That's
We
interesting.
can talk about this next podcast.
I'd be curious. Yeah, I'll do an in-depth dive to get us
Late
ready for next week.
with Jared, Monty, and Tyler.
Last, sorry, I erased this question and I shouldn't have, but it said who's been like the most impact true freshman this year?
Probably Levi Clark,
Yeah,
if I had to guess. Like
every SEC freshman at this point.
I don't know about that.
The Dalton Wentz at Wake Forest has been unbelievable. Hunter Carnes and Miles Bailey at Florida State. Tate Davis. Tate Davis is a good one. What about is it Dax Whitney? Is that his name?
Yes, Oregon State. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah,
but
I think it is Levi Clark.
Yeah.
Like I think he's still hitting over 500 to start the year. I could be mistaken.
It does just mean more. So
that is true. He also hit a ball on the railroad tracks at Dyken Park. Now I believe is the name of it. So
I've seen Juan Soto do that. I was like in the World Series. That's not a big deal.
Okay, buddy.
I see Juan Soto do that and then carry his bat to first base. It's no big deal.
That's true. That's true.
Oh wait, Juan Soto's really good, isn't he? I guess that's a bad comparison. No, go ahead, Jared.
I was gonna go with the next one here. I don't know if we need to do the Northeast as a whole, but who are the top draft prospects from Connecticut?
Ooh, let's see here. Where's my? Oh God,
are there draft prospects from Connecticut? Is the real question.
Probably.
Well, I put the state in.
They're probably in the SEC somewhere. There's probably a couple of them that you had no idea. They're all enjoying this, the southern weather.
Bring me Frank Mazzucato.
Well, hey, to kind of build off that, Matt Scott's from Connecticut.
That's true. He is.
There you go. Boom.
That's the big one for me right now. And for Matt Scott, like the fastball has kind of regressed a little bit. Like he dropped the slot, it's not performing as well. And I think there's like 3 different fastballs from what I saw this past week. And I think the best one's like a little cut right heater he throws at the top of the zone that misses bats. But the rest of it's kind of like it's flat. It doesn't have life. It's really steep to the plate. But he's got a cutter slider at 89-90. And he's also got 2 different changeups. He's got a splitter and a traditional change that he kind of works into later in his outings. But it was really effective against UNC when it kind of came down to it. He had 2 scoreless innings after getting rocked up in the first inning. And I think in the 4th, he had a little bit of trouble, but guys were kind of struggling with the secondaries a bit. But the fastball is a genuine concern for me right now. And I think he might just be the only. Oh, no, here we go. Thomas O'Connell from Salisbury High School, Virginia commit. Daniel Morgales is a southpaw from Cheshire Academy, Clemson commit. Who else do I have in here? Cam Maldonado's from Connecticut. He's a Northeastern kid, but from Walcott, Connecticut. Who else do I have in here? Daniel Bucciero. No. Daniel Bucciero from Fordham. I do.
Bonnie's keeping a track of every name that you put down.
Oh, I know he is. And I can send him the spreadsheet if he wants to. The Fordham third baseman, Bucciero, I think he moves pretty well and is good power threat. Saw him against Indiana. Is pretty young for the class too. I think he's from Ridgefield. But he's the last guy on the list. Connecticut has some interesting guys this year. I'll give him credit. But it's definitely, if you're looking for a state like that, there's not a ton of baseball talent to begin with. But go Huskies,
Sorry, Connecticut.
I guess.
Sorry, Connecticut. Well, we're gonna move on to we're gonna stick with geography here, and what Canadians should people have their eye on in this draft, both from high school and college?
Ooh, from high school and college.
Monty has his hand up.
Okay, Monty, go for it while I look for some guys here.
Cam Leiter.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is.
Yep. Look at you.
He is.
And Monty's frozen now, so it's even better. Who else?
That's such an. Hang on, I gotta take a screenshot of this. This is amazing.
Oh, good times.
Saving that. There we go. So there are two, and there goes purple screen. There are two Canadian prospects that I have my eye on this year. The first one is Tim Piacentin. I think I'm mispronouncing that, but I'm not very good with pronouncing names. So, but he's a third base prospect from Foothills Composite out in, it's like a Calgary area school in Alberta.
Okay.
Miami commit, but it's really, really powerful from the left side. There's been exit velocities up to like 108 with wood bat already. Hit tool can kind of be hit or miss. And I think third base, personally, like the feet can be a bit clunky. He doesn't move very well, but he's got the arm strength across the diamond. So first base, third base are kind of like the key positions to kind of watch there for him. And the other guy is Philip Cheong. I think I may have also mispronounced that. I am really sorry. But Stanford commit from Bill Crothers High School out in Ontario. 5'10", 170, but electric bat speed from the right side. There's sneaky pop in there. He can really hit. It's a lot of twitch, and he can play a pretty good center field too. So those are two high school guys that are going to crack the top 200 when we get to it. And the last Canadian to kind of put in here, Charles Davalon from Arkansas, really has turned around this year. I think he's from Montreal. But another small guy that has a lot of power in that little compact frame of his. So pretty interesting guy to kind of dive into. And he's also another guy in the top 200 to kind of watch as well.
Love it. We're going to go from Connecticut to Canada. Now we're going to prep prospects overall. So how many prep players have a legit shot going in the top 10?
I would say 4. I wouldn't be shocked if 3 or 4
more than I
make it.
thought you were going to say.
I know recently, like, it's been a lot of college guys at the top. Last year, obviously, kind of a really weak draft class on the prep side.
Yeah.
This year, you can make the argument that the prep side is better than the college side. Like, it's flipped a little bit. But for me, like, kind of looking at guys who could be in the top 10, Billy Carlson, for one, I think he's solidified himself there. Seth Hernandez, if you kind of ignore how people have been kind of scared of prep pitchers in the past. Gavin Fiend, Eli Willits, Ethan Holiday are guys to kind of put in there as well. So 3 to 4, you can maybe even throw 5 in there if you really want to, but it really just all boils down to how the rest of the year plays.
Yeah, I love it. And this kind of builds off of that too. What's the trait you prioritize when projecting prep hitters? How does it adjust for competition?
Ooh, so that's a good question that really dives into the process of evaluating for me. And the biggest thing, just outright for any player that I see, is athleticism. Athleticism for me is a key trait. And like we talked before about how some guys are stiff, and being a really good athlete and having twitch is pretty valuable to me. You're able to open up the hips, get to the inside pitches. And for me, when you look at guys who can hit inside pitches and pull the baseball, like that for me is a compliment of a true hitter. Because you can use the whole field, you can go opposite field, but really to show the prowess of a true hitter, it's to pull the baseball with authority. And if you can hammer those inside pitches and pull them with authority, I think you've really prioritized yourself as a true hitter. And adjusting for competition, like obviously you won't see that a ton with prep guys. Like whenever you go to the big showcases like PG National or NHSI, like if you start seeing that, you have your eyes set on the guy.
Yeah.
But if you're looking based off of just spring data where they're facing guys who are probably going to be college students with frat lives moving forward, it's tougher to really see that and be like, hey, this is like game changing. You got to show what you can against the best competition. And that's where it kind of works on the prep level. And with college, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you go against these mid majors if you're in like the SEC or ACC, and you're doing it, but then you do it against the the best of your conference. That for me kind of stands out more than anything else. Like you're able to do that against the best competition, the best people that you're going to face out through the whole year. If you're doing that pretty well, I think that works out. But the kind of shorten everything up, athleticism is the main trait for me to kind of look at. And then you kind of build off of that from there. So like for me, see athleticism, how easy the game kind of comes to them, how easy they make the game. So for example, like Luke Stevenson having a really balanced swing, really easy power. Those are check boxes for me.
Yeah.
Then you kind of build upon that. What's the approach? How does he handle heaters? That's a big thing for me. What's the chase rate like? That's another big thing for me. And you kind of build those pieces together and you get the full puzzle after that. So hopefully that answers the question. It's a kind of a drawn out answer, but that's kind of like how I kind of evaluate from the get-go.
No, I love it. And I think that's like a great way to wrap it up on. So that kind of does it for our mailbag episode. We can't thank you enough for sending all the questions in. We appreciate you all just listening in and just enjoying us talk about college baseball and the MLB draft. We couldn't be doing this without you. For Monty, who lost Wi-Fi, he just wanted to go to bed, is my guess. I don't think he really lost Wi-Fi.
We didn't talk about a Gardner Webb guy, so I think he had to kind of dip after that. But
yeah, no Pitt, no Penn State, no Gardner Webb.
Actually, you know what? I think the Gardner Webb head coach heard him talking about Phil Fox the other day and came over and took out his Wi-Fi.
I love it. But yeah, we all cannot thank you enough. This has been awesome just to be able to do this. We got more content coming your way. Like Tyler mentioned, he's got a top 200 MLB draft board that's going to be dropping soon. We had interviews with Vanderbilt's RJ Austin, Georgia's Devin Obie that recently came out. We got more interviews with top draft prospects coming your way. Content's not done. We're going to keep coming. We're going to have MLB draft deep dives. We're going to have more college baseball analysis. It's going to be great. And we're excited to keep going with you all. And until next time, we'll see you.